The low hum of the television filled the spacious room, its light flickering against the walls of Tesla's headquarters. Elon Musk sat at the head of the long conference table, his fingers steepled in front of him. The screen showed a polished news anchor delivering a breaking story with the kind of gravity reserved for scandals. Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk, is under fire as allegations of financial fraud surface. Anonymous sources claim irregularities in company reports, sparking widespread outrage and a plummet in Tesla's stock prices. Elon's face, usually a mask of confidence, betrayed a flicker of disbelief. His mind raced. Who? Why now? Outside, reporters swarmed the gates, cameras flashing like lightning in the darkening evening. Inside, the weight of the words hung heavy in the room, suffocating the usual hum of productivity. Meanwhile, in a sleek downtown office, Hana Lee sat at her desk, the same broadcast playing on her monitor. Her dark eyes sharpened as she leaned forward, taking in the details. This wasn't just a corporate hiccup, this was an orchestrated takedown. Interesting, she murmured, her mind already piecing together a strategy. As the anchor closed with the promise of more breaking updates, Hana straightened her back and reached for her phone. The storm had only just begun. The conference room at Tesla's headquarters was packed with reporters, their voices merging into a cacophony of shouted questions. Elon Musk stood at the podium, his face pale but composed. Cameras clicked incessantly, capturing every twitch of his expression. "Mr. Musk," a reporter's voice rose above the others, sharp and insistent, "can you confirm or deny the allegations of financial misconduct? Is Tesla facing bankruptcy?" Elon gripped the edges of the podium, his knuckles white. "These allegations are completely baseless," he began, his voice steady but strained. "Tesla has always operated with transparency and integrity. We will address these claims through the appropriate channels." The room erupted again, the reporters unsatisfied with his measured response. Another voice rang out, "What about the rumors of internal whistleblowers? Can you respond to claims that your competitors have proof of your wrongdoing?" Elon opened his mouth to respond but stopped, his mind a swirl of doubt and frustration. How could he fight back when every word was twisted into more ammunition against him? In a nearby coffee shop, Hana sat at a corner table, her laptop open to live footage of the press conference. Her fingers tapped rhythmically on the keys, gathering information. She could see the storm raging around Musk, a calculated, ruthless attack. Finishing her coffee, she closed the laptop and grabbed her coat. It was time to move. Later that evening, Elon retreated to his office, his usual confidence battered. He slumped into his chair, staring at the glowing cityscape through the window. He had weathered storms before, but this felt different, relentless, personal. A soft knock at the door broke the silence. His assistant stepped in hesitantly. "There's someone here to see you, Mr. Musk. She says she can help." Elon frowned. "Who?" The assistant stepped aside, and a petite woman in a tailored suit entered the room. Her sharp gaze met Elon's. "Hana Lee," she said, extending a hand. "I'm a lawyer. And I think you've just met your match in the art of corporate warfare." Elon hesitated, his hand hovering before shaking hers. "Why would you want to help me?" Hana's lips curled into a slight smile. "Because I don't like bullies. And because I think this is going to be one hell of a fight." Elon Musk stared at Hana from across his cluttered desk, his mind caught between suspicion and curiosity. She was calm, unshaken by the chaos swirling around him. "You've been watching the news," Elon said, his tone wary. "You know what they're saying about me. Why risk your reputation getting involved?" Hana folded her arms, leaning slightly forward. "Because this isn't just about you. It's about the truth. If you're guilty, you don't need me. But if you're innocent, I can help prove it." Elon studied her for a moment. There was no hesitation in her eyes, no trace of opportunism. Just resolve. All right, he said finally. But you should know, this won't be easy. They're out for blood. Hana smirked. Good thing I'm not afraid of a little fight. The next day, Hana plunged into the mountain of documents Tesla provided her. Financial records, emails, contracts, it was an overwhelming sea of information. But Hana thrived in the chaos, her analytical mind sorting through it with precision. In a dimly lit conference room, she worked late into the night, a stack of papers on one side and her laptop glowing softly on the other. Elon entered quietly, his footsteps hesitant. "You're still here?" he asked, surprised. Hana didn't look up. "If we're going to win this, I need to understand every angle." Elon walked closer, pulling up a chair. "You believe we can win?" Hana glanced at him, her expression unwavering. "That depends. Are you ready to trust me?" He nodded after a pause. "I don't have much of a choice, do I?" Hana's lips twitched into a faint smile. "No, you don't." As days turned into weeks, Hana's determination began to chip away at Elon's guarded demeanor. Her meticulous work unearthed inconsistencies in the allegations, small but significant details that pointed to a larger conspiracy. One evening, as they reviewed her findings together, Elon leaned back in his chair, his face softening. "You're good at this," he said. Hana glanced at him, her tone matter-of-fact. "You don't need flattery. What you need is to focus." Elon chuckled for the first time in weeks. Point taken. The walls of mistrust between them started to crack, but the storm outside showed no signs of relenting. The relentless storm of allegations showed no sign of abating. Every day brought new headlines, new rumors, and more attacks from competitors eager to see Tesla stumble. Inside the legal war room Hana had set up in Tesla's headquarters, the atmosphere was tense but focused. Stacks of documents covered the table, and a whiteboard displayed a web of connections that Hana had meticulously mapped out, key players, timelines, and suspicious inconsistencies. "This email," Hana said, pointing to a highlighted line on her laptop, "claims that you approved a transaction that doesn't exist in the financial records." Elon leaned forward, scanning the screen. His jaw tightened. "I've never seen this before." Hana nodded, as if expecting his response. "That's because it's fabricated. The metadata shows it was created after the allegations were filed. Whoever is behind this isn't even trying to hide their tracks anymore." Elon exhaled sharply, frustration evident in the lines of his face. "It feels like I'm in a nightmare I can't wake up from. Every time I think we've caught up, there's something new." Hana looked at him, her gaze steady. "That's what they want, to wear you down until you can't fight back. But we're not going to let them." Outside the war room, Elon's despair deepened. The weight of the accusations was more than professional, it was personal. The media wasn't just targeting Tesla, they were targeting his identity, his dreams, and his legacy. One night, as he stared out over the city from his office, his thoughts were interrupted by a knock. Hana entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you could use this," she said, placing one in front of him. He managed a faint smile. "Thanks. Do you ever sleep?" "Not much when I'm working a case," she admitted, sitting down across from him. "And this one's worth losing a little sleep over." Her calm demeanor was a balm to his frayed nerves. "How do you do it?" he asked suddenly. "Stay so composed?" Hana considered his question. "You don't focus on the storm. You focus on what's at the center of it. For me, that's the truth. For you, it's Tesla and everything you've built. Remember why you started, and let that guide you." Her words struck a chord, and for the first time in days, Elon felt a spark of hope. As Hana continued to uncover discrepancies and dismantle the accusations, Elon found himself relying on her more, not just for her legal expertise, but for her unwavering presence. Slowly, she was becoming the steady anchor he desperately needed in the storm. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension as the hearing began. The opposing legal team sat with smug confidence, their lead counsel, a polished, silver-tongued veteran, ready to deliver the final blow. Elon Musk sat beside Hana, his face impassive, though his clenched fists betrayed his nerves. "All rise," the bailiff announced, and the judge entered, her expression unreadable. Hana stood, her tailored suit immaculate, her eyes sharp and focused. The moment the proceedings began, she commanded the room. "Your Honor," she started, her voice calm but firm, "the evidence against my client is built on a foundation of falsehoods. I intend to prove that not only are these allegations baseless but that they are part of a deliberate attempt to sabotage Tesla's reputation." The opposing lawyer smirked. "Bold words, Ms. Lee. Do you have evidence to back them up?" Hana's lips twitched into a faint smile. "Indeed, I do." As the hearing progressed, Hana presented her findings with precision. She introduced emails, financial records, and metadata analyses that pointed to the fabrication of key accusations. The courtroom watched as she meticulously dismantled the opposition's case, her arguments weaving together like a masterful symphony. Her voice never wavered, even when the opposing counsel attempted to rattle her with sharp questions. Instead, she turned their interruptions into opportunities, exposing the weaknesses in their arguments. At one point, she called an independent forensic analyst to the stand. The analyst confirmed Hana's claim that the incriminating emails were fabricated. The opposing counsel's confidence faltered for the first time. Elon watched in awe, his earlier skepticism giving way to genuine admiration. Hana wasn't just fighting for him, she was fighting for Tesla, for everything he'd built, and she was winning. By the time Hana delivered her closing statement, the mood in the room had shifted. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady, "what we have here is not just an attempt to discredit a company but an attack on innovation and integrity. Elon Musk has dedicated his life to pushing boundaries, and these allegations are nothing more than an attempt to destroy what he stands for. The evidence speaks for itself. My client is innocent." As she sat down, a hushed murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge's gavel struck, signaling the end of the session. The decision would come later, but the tide had clearly turned. Back at Tesla headquarters that evening, the team erupted into cautious celebration. Hana stood to the side, quietly sipping a glass of water. Elon approached her, his expression softer than it had been in weeks. "You were incredible today," he said. She shrugged, a faint smile on her lips. "It's not over yet. But we're closer." For the first time in a long while, Elon felt the weight on his shoulders lighten, just a little. Hana stepped into her office the next morning, only to be greeted by her assistant holding a tablet with a grim expression. "You need to see this," they said, sliding it across the desk. Hana's stomach tightened as she glanced at the headline, "Who is Hana Lee? The lawyer with secrets of her own." The article was a smear piece, filled with half-truths and outright lies. It painted her as overly ambitious, accused her of mishandling past cases, and even questioned her ethics. The timing was no coincidence. She set the tablet down, her face impassive. "They're getting desperate," she said calmly. Her assistant hesitated. "Should we respond?" "Not yet," Hana replied. "Let's see how far they're willing to go." Later that day, Hana sat across from Elon in another strategy meeting. His face darkened as he scrolled through the article. "This is ridiculous," he said, his frustration evident. "They're attacking you now? For what, doing your job?" Hana shrugged. "It's a classic move. They can't refute our evidence, so they're trying to undermine my credibility." Elon's fists clenched. "We should go after them for this." Hana shook her head. "Not yet. Fighting every little attack only gives them more attention. We stay focused on the case." Her calm demeanor seemed unshakable, but as the day wore on, doubts crept into her mind. The article was gaining traction, and while she trusted her own integrity, she knew how public perception could turn. That evening, Hana worked late in her office, the lights dimmed and the city skyline visible through the large windows. She reread the article, dissecting every claim. A soft knock on the door startled her. Elon entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You're working late again," he said, placing a cup on her desk. "Comes with the job," she replied, though her usual confidence felt thinner than usual. Elon sat down, studying her. "You know, they can try to discredit you, but anyone who's worked with you can see the truth. You're brilliant, Hana. Don't let them get in your head." For a moment, her guarded expression softened. "Thanks. But this isn't about me, it's about winning this case. If I let them distract me, they win." Elon nodded, a newfound respect in his gaze. "You're stronger than most people I've ever met." Hana gave him a faint smile. "So are you. Don't forget that." Despite the smear campaign, Hana pressed forward. With each new revelation, the case grew stronger, and the shadows of doubt couldn't extinguish the light of her determination. The storm raged on, but in its eye, Hana and Elon stood unwavering. The courtroom was silent, the tension palpable as Hana rose to her feet for what everyone knew was the decisive moment. This was the day she would present the cornerstone of her case, a damning piece of evidence that would expose the orchestrated attack on Tesla and Elon Musk. Elon sat behind her, his usually confident demeanor subdued but hopeful. Across the room, the opposing counsel shifted uncomfortably, sensing the shift in momentum. "Your Honor," Hana began, her voice calm and steady, "we have uncovered evidence that these allegations were not only fabricated but deliberately orchestrated by a coordinated group with vested interests in Tesla's downfall." The room buzzed with whispered speculation as Hana walked to the projector screen, clicking through slides that displayed emails, financial records, and correspondence between the accusers and Tesla's competitors. "These documents," she continued, her tone sharpened with precision, "show clear communication between the primary accuser and executives from a rival company. Payments were made. False evidence was planted. And Tesla's reputation was the target." The judge leaned forward, studying the displayed evidence. "Ms. Lee, can you substantiate these claims with corroborating witnesses?" Hana smiled faintly, as if she'd been waiting for the question. "Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to call Mr. Alan Cross to the stand." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Alan Cross, a former employee of the rival company, entered nervously. He'd come forward days earlier, providing critical testimony that confirmed Hana's findings. Under Hana's questioning, Alan revealed everything: the meetings, the payments, and the explicit instructions to discredit Tesla. His words were the final blow. By the time the hearing ended, the courtroom was in an uproar. The opposing counsel looked defeated, their arguments thoroughly dismantled. Hana's methodical approach and Alan's testimony left no room for doubt. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions at Elon and Hana as they exited. For once, Elon didn't flinch under the cameras. "Do you have a statement, Mr. Musk?" one reporter called. Elon paused, glancing at Hana before speaking. "I'll just say this: truth has a way of coming out, no matter how hard you try to bury it. And I owe a great deal of gratitude to Ms. Lee for ensuring it did." Hana gave a small, professional nod, but there was a hint of pride in her expression. That evening, back at Tesla headquarters, the team erupted into cheers. Employees hugged, toasted, and celebrated the victory. Hana stood on the balcony, looking out at the city, away from the noise. Elon found her there, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He handed her one and stood beside her. "You did it," he said, his voice softer than usual. "We did it," she corrected. He smiled, the weight of weeks of despair finally lifting. "I couldn't have done it without you." For a moment, the chaos faded, and in the quiet of that balcony, they shared a rare, unguarded moment of triumph and understanding. A week had passed since the courtroom victory, and the storm that had once engulfed Tesla and Elon Musk was finally subsiding. Headlines shifted from scandal to vindication, Musk cleared of fraud allegations, evidence reveals corporate sabotage, and Tesla triumphs against all odds. In his office, Elon sat at his desk, reviewing updates from his team. The numbers were already climbing, stock prices rebounding, investor confidence returning. Yet his focus drifted as he stared out the window, his thoughts elsewhere. A soft knock at the door pulled him back to the moment. "Come in," he called. Hana stepped in, her professional demeanor intact but with a trace of exhaustion around her eyes. "You're becoming a regular here," Elon said, a hint of humor in his tone. Hana smirked. "Don't worry, I'll start billing you for the extra hours." Elon laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in months. "You'd be worth every penny." She took a seat across from him, her expression turning serious. "I just wanted to check in before I head out. Everything seems to be stabilizing, but I'll keep monitoring things in case anyone tries to stir up more trouble." "You've done more than enough, Hana," Elon said, leaning forward. "I don't know how I can ever thank you." Hana's gaze softened. "You already have. You trusted me to do my job, and together, we turned this around. That's all I needed." That evening, Tesla hosted a small celebration at one of its facilities. Employees, investors, and key supporters gathered to mark the turning of the tide. Elon gave a heartfelt speech, expressing his gratitude to everyone who stood by the company during its darkest hour. And finally, he concluded, a special thanks to someone who showed unwavering dedication and brilliance throughout this ordeal. "Hana Lee, you've not only helped save Tesla, but you've also reminded me why it's worth fighting for what you believe in." The crowd erupted into applause, and Hana, standing at the back of the room, felt a warmth she wasn't used to. As the night wound down, Hana found herself back on the balcony, drawn to the quiet of the night sky. She leaned on the railing, breathing in the crisp air. Elon joined her once again, his champagne glass in hand. "You know," he said, his voice low, "you could have walked away when things got messy. Most people would've." Hana glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "Most people aren't me. And you're not most people either. That's why I stayed." For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence, the city lights flickering below them. "Will you stay in touch?" Elon asked, breaking the quiet. Hana smiled faintly. "I think I owe it to myself to see where the next storm takes me. But if you ever need someone to stand by you again, you know where to find me." As she turned to leave, Elon watched her go, knowing he'd found not just an ally but someone who had fundamentally changed his perspective. And as the city hummed with life, both Hana and Elon faced the future, stronger for having weathered the storm together. Weeks turned into months, and Tesla's resurgence was nothing short of remarkable. The stock had not only recovered but soared to new heights. Public sentiment shifted, with Elon Musk once again hailed as a visionary. Competitors grew silent, their schemes exposed and their reputations tarnished. Despite the success, Elon found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. It wasn't just the company's survival that mattered, it was the people who had stood by him. And no one had stood taller than Hana Lee. One quiet afternoon, Elon decided to step away from his usual routine. He left the office, driving himself to a small, unassuming law firm in downtown Los Angeles. The receptionist looked up, startled to see the billionaire entrepreneur. "Mr. Musk. Do you have an appointment?" Elon smiled. "No, but I'm hoping Hana Lee might be free." Moments later, Hana appeared, her surprise quickly hidden behind her usual composed demeanor. "Elon," she said, her tone both questioning and amused. "What brings you here?" He held up a small envelope. "I came to deliver this in person." She raised an eyebrow, taking the envelope and opening it. Inside was a handwritten note. Hana. For everything you've done, for Tesla, for me, for the truth, thank you. You've been more than a lawyer, you've been a true ally. Wherever your next case takes you, I hope you know you've made an impact that won't be forgotten. Elon. Hana folded the note, her expression softening. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to, Elon said simply. People like you are rare. You didn't just fight for the company, you reminded me why I started this in the first place. Months later, Elon watched from afar as Hana's career flourished. She took on high-profile cases, each one marked by her signature tenacity and unshakable integrity. Her reputation as a champion for justice grew, but she never sought the spotlight. As for Elon, Tesla continued to thrive, but he carried the lessons of that turbulent chapter with him. The storm had tested him, broken him down, and rebuilt him. In quiet moments, he thought of Hana, not with regret, but with gratitude. She had entered his life at a time when he was at his lowest and left it forever changed. And somewhere, Hana looked back on her time with Tesla and Elon Musk with the same sense of fulfillment. The storms of life were inevitable, but weathering them together had forged something unshakable: respect, trust, and a bond that neither time nor distance could erase.